The voice of sharing during ASEAN.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, good morning. This is Arlene and you are listening to us at Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. Today we are going to bring you news from Southeast Asia, but to start off, some breaking news about Malaysia. Recently, regarding on the news of mass graves in the border between Thailand and Malaysia, where they found many dead body of Myanmar and Bangladeshi migrants, as well as Rohingya. Yesterday, the Malaysian government laid them to rest and give them a proper burial. The remains of many of the 106 people found at an abandoned human trafficking campsite near the border had been identified, with 21 of them given a proper burial. And this was said by Malaysia's Home Affairs Minister Zahid Hamidi. The abandoned sites in the Malaysia territory were discovered late last month after the massive scale of human smuggling was exposed by a Thai crackdown on trafficking networks, which has left thousands of desperate people stranded at seas on rickety boats. The dense forests of southern Thai and northern Malaysia have been a major staging post for smugglers bringing people for Southeast Asia by boats from Myanmar. Most of them are Rohingya Muslims who are fleeing from persecution, and of course economic migrants from Bangladesh. Malaysia Deputy Home Minister Wan Junaidi Tuanku Jaafar said that at that time the investigation showed that the bodies were wrapped in shrouds and their resting places marked with wooden sticks. On the other hand, in Indonesia, Indonesia has rejected French death row inmates' last appeal. The court in Indonesia has rejected the final appeal of a French national facing execution for drug offences. Court says that it will not overturn President Joko Widodo's decision to deny clemency to drug offenders. His name is Serge Atlaoud. According to the presiding judge, Ujang Abdullah, he told in front of the State Administrative Court in Jakarta that he rejected the challenge by the challenger. The case has drawn international attention as well as national attention in France, which vigorously opposed the death penalty. He has been due to the French national Serge Atlaoud has been due to put to death with 7 other foreign drug offenders 2 months ago, but won a temporary reprieve after Paris stepped up pressure, with authorities agreeing to let his appeal run its course. Amnesty International and other rights groups condemned the execution, saying that they show a complete disregard for due process and human rights safeguards. Earlier on, 14 people have been put to death in Indonesia, and these are all by this year, and the government has announced plans for further execution this year. And President Joko Widodo also mentioned to Al Jazeera, justifying the death penalty, that he said he believes Indonesian legal system is thorough in these cases and looks at evidence. He wants to send a strong message to drug smugglers that Indonesia is firm and serious in tackling the drug problems. And one of the consequences is execution if the court sentences them to death. On the other hand, you see Vietnam, in Vietnam, regarding on the hijack oil tanker, a Malaysian oil tanker. It says that 8 Indonesian has confessed to the hijacking. A Vietnamese official said the 8 Indonesian had been apprehended last week and have confessed to the hijacking of a Malaysian oil tanker. Colonel Don Bao Nguyen, political commissioner of Vietnam Coast Guard Region 4 base in the southern province of Kiên Giang. He said that the Indonesians initially said they encountered an accident at sea while fishing when they arrived in Thao Chu Island of Vietnam's southern coast. But after questioning with the images and information provided by Malaysian authorities, they confessed that they were responsible for the hijacking of the oil tanker earlier this month. The tanker MT Orchim Harmony with 22 crews carrying 7.5 million liters of gasoline worth 21 million ringgit on its way to Kuantan in Malaysia when communication were lost with it on June 11 and was suspected being hijacked by pirates. It seems like Southeast Asia has the most pirate activities in the world. Why is this happening? One of the reasons could be because the maritime security border in Southeast Asia is quite lax, and at the same time, pirates activity in Southeast Asia seems to be quite robust, maybe due to the fact that the pirates in Southeast Asia, they are able to move freely without and disregarding the law without being apprehended by the authorities. On the other hand, internationally, we've seen quite a number of protests going on. In fact, majority of the protests happened all over the world as well as in China itself. This is regarding on the anti-dog meat protesters, regarding on the Yunnan dog meat festival, where campaigners protested against China's annual dog meat festival in Yunnan. Thousands of canines were being butchered and eaten, or were being forcibly dispersed by were being forcibly butchered and eaten in China. About 10 animal rights activists unfurled banners outside the Yunnan government headquarters before 20 men came and chased them. The Yunnan city holds an annual festival on the summer solstice devoted to the consumption of dog meat. The campaigner held signs reading, "Crack down on illegal dog meat trade and punish illegal dog transport." But the banners were quickly torn out of their hands by the unidentified group of men. The slogans attempt to appeal to local government officials to enforce existing law on health and administrative ground, as there are no rules banning the consumption of dog meat. Many of these animals are stolen pets, and most of the dog meat trucks come in total breach of China's very clear law on animals for human consumption. This is according to Adam Paraksendola, Director of Animal Cruelty Issues at the Washington, D.C.-based Humane Society. And how much longer can China simply allow the Yunnan authorities to flout the law like this? As many as 10 million dogs are killed for food annually in China, with up to 10,000 killed for the Yunnan festival, according to the Humane Society. And campaigners protesting for the China's annual dog meat festival, where you can see they recorded quite a number of footages where a lot of cubs, puppies, and dogs were being caged and they were being eaten as well as treated cruelly by the Yunnan society, and it is part of the festival in a way. Majority of the dog meat in the country are stolen pets, unfortunately, and at the same time, activists says that the festival is cruel, having in the past traveled to the city to hold demonstrations, sometimes buying dogs to save them from the cooking pots. One animal lover, Yang Xiaoyun, reported paid about 7,000 yuan or equivalent to $1,100 to save around 100 dogs in the southern city of Yunnan. On the other hand, talking about animals, Japan intends to resume whale hunt this year. Japan chief whaling negotiator said that the country intends to resume hunts in the Antarctic this year, despite a call by global regulators for more evidence that the expedition have a scientific purpose. Joji Morishita said that the whole debate about whether or not Japan should be killing the mammals have long since moved away from science and into politics. The scientific committee of the International Whaling Commission said that in a report on Friday that Japan had failed to give enough details to explain why it wanted to kill almost 4,000 minke whales in the Atlantic over the next 12 years. Despite international disapproval, Japan has hunted whales in the southern oceans under an exemption in the global whaling moratorium that allows for little research. It makes no secret of the fact that meat from the mammals killed ostensibly for research is processed into food, and says the whale population in any case is big enough to allow sustainable whaling. Tell us if you agree with that. To us, whaling itself looks like it's a traditional activity in Japan, and Japanese some of the Japanese consume whale meat, but to kill whale for the sake of consumption, while the whaling population are still not yet on the level that is considered large enough, is one question that we need to ask ourselves. On the other hand, internationally, there's a news about a Norwegian ship rescuing more than 600 migrants in the Mediterranean. A Norwegian ship rescued more than 600 migrants from 2 wooden boats on Monday in the southern part of the Mediterranean. This is according to Norwegian police, stated on Twitter. All migrants picked by the ship, the Siam pilot, were healthy, including several pregnant women. Thousands of migrants fleeing war and poverty in Africa and the Middle East have died trying to cross the Mediterranean, mostly heading for Italy. The EU leaders agreed in April to boost naval search mission in the Mediterranean waters after a boat sank and as many as 900 migrants died off the coast of Libya. The Siam pilot is part of the EU operation of Italy. It was originally built to supply oil platform in the North Sea. We will take a short break. When we return, we will continue with our news on the economic and business side of Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hi, this is Arlene and you are listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. On our ASEAN Daily today, we continue with our economic and business news as well as socio-cultural affairs. And to start off, regarding on Singapore, it will not host the Indonesia government's data. This is according to the Minister of State-Owned Enterprises, Rini Soemarno, and she spoke about the controversial cooperation between Indonesia's state-controlled Telekomunikasi Indonesia, or Telkom, with Singapore's telco company, Singapore Telecommunications. She clarified that the data center being built by Telekomunikasi Indonesia International Singapore, or Telin Singapore in Jurong, Singapore, will not host Indonesia government data. It will be for businesses in Singapore only. Telkom is building its third data center in Singapore after winning a tender through the Telin Singapore for permission to operate a data center in Jurong. Telin is fully a subsidiary of Telkom. Last week, an NGO called Indonesia Club filed criminal charges against the minister, accusing her of authorizing the Telkom to build a data center in Singapore, partly owned by the Singapore parastatal, with the assumption that it would host Indonesian government data. Gege Guntoro, director of Indonesia Club, pointed out that risks of Telkom and Singtel hosting Indonesia's e-government services, saying that the corporation may violate state intelligence and electronic communication law. He further argued that electronic system and transaction in Indonesia, especially those that relate to data server for public services, must be located within the country. Indonesian government is transparent about government doing, seems like, with the press conference and press statement made by Rini Soemarno. On the other hand, regarding on Bangladesh, apparently it will be one of the latest country to join AIIB, or Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. Bangladesh will sign the deal and join the China-led AIIB on June 28, with an international it is an international financial institution proposed by China, and State Minister for Finance and Planning M.A. Mana will sign the agreement in Beijing on behalf of Bangladesh. And besides that, according to AIIB article of agreement, the authorized capital of the bank have been fixed at TK $100 billion, of which Bangladesh will pay $665 billion for 0.67% stake. With the fund, Bangladesh will earn 9,635 votes, or 0.83% of the total votes. The Chinese government alone will provide half of the 100 billion paid up capital. On the other hand, Malaysia is also venturing outside of Southeast Asia. Is also venturing towards Southeast Asia, bringing in McKinsey in bid to allure regional tech startups investment. Tan Sri Dr. Muhammad Irwan Serigai Abdullah, Secretary General of Malaysia's Treasury, Ministry of Finance, and Cheryl Yeo, Magic's CEO, have ambition to surpass Silicon Valley in Southeast Asia. McKinsey is in the process of speaking with international venture capital firms, including investment firms from the United States, and have invited companies from Australia to discuss potential funding and entrepreneurial partnership program. The consulting firm will deliver a report for the Treasury Secretary in August and will be used to inform the Malaysian government on the best approach to support and grow technology entrepreneurship in this country. Just a bit of a background about the venture itself. Malaysia needs to get better than other countries which already have more advanced entrepreneur programs and funding arrangement. This includes the likes of Singapore and South Korea. For example, the Singapore government's generous co-funding grant and equity arrangements for early stage startups have been able to attract global investment firms, including the likes of SoftBank and US VC firm Sequoia Capital to the region. On the other hand, talking about business regionally and as well as in the region of Asia, apparently Asia exporters are struggling to cope with a changing global economy. In the good old days, many Asian governments could stick to a simple economic strategy, ramp up exports, and reap solid growth rates. Now, export-led growth no longer serves the region well, and Asia is struggling to overhaul the economic model as it waits for world trade to recover. According to HSBC economist Fred Norman, this is because the rebound is going to be capped because of changes in the world economy, including how American consumers are much more frugal than a decade ago. Asian exports to the United States have risen this year, but such growth now is more driven by investment in software development and shale oil drilling than by activity that pulls in imports. Still, global trade talks and the shrinkage of manufacturing supply chains that stretch from China, the world's workshop are making policymakers from Bangkok to Seoul consider new models as exports may never again grow rapidly as in the 2000s. The global trade pattern has changed, definitely. And this is also agreed by the Deputy Governor at Thailand's Central Bank, Paibul Kitty Srikawang. The patchy recovery in advanced economies isn't producing the same import demands as before. South Korean Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan also called for a strategic change by exporters to target Chinese consumers rather than factories. Indonesian Trade Minister Rachmant Gobel, pressed on what he's doing to boost exports, says that he will seek more access for local goods to Western markets. On the other hand, besides a problem facing Asia's exports, also problems facing unemployment. This is particularly true for Indonesia. Indonesia's companies are shedding jobs as they grapple with the weakest economic growth in 6 years, adding the troubles facing President Joko Widodo, who was elected last year, pledging the country to boost up its economic growth. Government data might suggest no cause for alarm. Unemployment was at 5.81% in February, up only slightly from 5.70% a year earlier. But the official numbers are notoriously unreliable and don't adequately cover the informal sector, which is 2/3 of Southeast Asia's biggest economy. And recent reports of heavy layoffs across the country paints a bleak picture, and business executive recruitment firms and job seekers say that it is getting worse. And of course, young people are being hit the hardest. According to ILO, estimated that youth jobless rate was more than 20% in 2013, but economists are believing that the number could be higher. On the other hand, talking about economy, if you want to learn to have a better economic advantage for yourself, better job prospect, usually the best way is to learn another language. And interestingly, for Chinese students in Yunnan, Thai language is the language of choice. Of the 5 foreign languages taught in China's Yunnan Normal University, Thai is the most popular choice, with about 90 Chinese students choosing it as their major for the year. The language is also selected as a minor subject by around 150 to 200 students, said Duan Zhaoyang, a Thai language lecturer at the University International Cooperative Education Center. It has been the most popular because the Chinese students the language has been the most popular among Chinese students since foreign languages were introduced to the student. And Myanmar apparently is the second most popular language besides Thai, and the other language are Laotian, Vietnamese, and Cambodian. It's interesting to see that the Chinese students are getting more and more interested in Southeast Asia, learning Southeast Asian language. Perhaps the same thing should be applied in Southeast Asia itself. We should be able to learn at least one language of Southeast Asian as a Southeast Asian young people here. And on the other hand, there are websites that you can learn Vietnamese for free. Vietnam's economy has gone through magical development in the past few decades, which have improved both its living and its investment environment. The combine of the country's colorful culture, friendly people, and magnificent scenes have brought a large number of foreigners over to visit the country, and a large number of them have decided to stay for long and learned Vietnamese language. Of course, is the key to be able to move around in Vietnam. Unlike in other countries in Southeast Asia like Singapore or Malaysia, not many people in Vietnam speaks English. So if you plan to live here for a long time, you definitely need to know the native language quicker. But don't worry, there are a lot of websites that caters to foreigners who really want to learn the language without paying anything. And there are a few websites for it to learning Vietnamese. One of it is www.123vietnamese.com. Launched in late 2013, the website is one of the free websites where professional investors have gained big success in teaching Vietnamese to foreigners. And yeah, for you all, if you really want to stay in Vietnam for a long time, to expand your business and to absorb into the beautiful culture of Vietnam, definitely you need to go to www.123vietnamese.com. That's all for our news today. I hope you enjoy our news commentary, and we'll be back the same thing tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning, Malaysia time. And of course, don't forget to keep up with us via our social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can always listen to us on the go by downloading the TuneIn app and search for Durian ASEAN.